I'm kind of like recording chapter 3 of Sara Davies. Anyone can make it, and chapter 3 is very interesting. It talks about the idea of publicizing a product in lines of what do you call making a running line. If we talk about establishing a brand, and in this day and market, establishing a brand has to be on a kind of like horizontal basis of marketing. If I remember everything in terms of strategies of developing things, because like you're trying to compete against existing brands, brands that are in a big market. They still, these things still thrive and exist, but there's difficulty. Now, on reliance to like identity in relation to forming a brand, if you have a product, you need a patency for it, a patent. Now, I've seen this already, but the cost for a patent is initially 500, and then coming in lines of making a product. How does the two link together? I think the concept of making an idea, concept, and then commercializing it, you need the have the proof of the methodical under your concept. So I had an idea of how to make products in line with my own branding image, in corresponding to making a product. However, the idea that I had that could establish a good portion of for the product design needs to be patented, and I just don't have the money. So because I don't have the money, publicizing my idea for a product line in regards to a theme meme is a risky business because basically anyone can do it. And yeah, that's why basically having a plan and a framework to work on it requires protection. And that's just not something that I can do. So I was going to explore the idea on doing a research for concept implication of externalizing things of a bit of a joke, leading to trying to channel that into some form of success, which is what I'm trying to do. Pushing away influences which I feel like I'm trying to like improve myself, so I wouldn't need to rely on it. This is interesting. This is quite interesting. It's the basis of being an omni-channel in a not trusted source for anyone to want to project success in a business perspective of trying to get running a line. So it has an element of risk, even if you're pitching this idea before to the investors, like the Dragon Den being a famous TV commercialized hub. But like, if the biggest implication is again funding, even if I would like to put into motion this strategy in lines of understanding what is it that I feel like I like to try to like push out of externalizing things that would be fun, and then getting the information that I understood in lines of like where a good portion of like gross revenues in terms of popularities from films would be targeted towards in this direction. As the side of reality is just there's just not possible. I'm not able to play with a product in mind because of issues arising from funding, risk of carrying out this idea, and also the biggest implication of it is so the biggest implication of it is also in lines of like my family circumstances without support would mean that I would not be able to like even try to like experiment to see if this can bring in profit. If I make the comparison of like people who already start their business in project lines to pitch it to the Dragon's Den to see if they are success, like quoting these statistical numbers and figures in lines of giving building confidence into an investor to like link into your product to be able to like say that if I put money into you, then I consider you like I say the idea is like a blue chip company. So like I think that there's a good chance it's a good secure investment for my portfolio, thinking that you're gonna it's gonna bring in money for me. It's just like the project is not gonna be fast. You need to see how customers appeal to it and what so, and yeah, I mean it's just not gonna be fast. The priority of building a establish brand that gives people confidence for their enjoyment can't is not unless you have like you're really wealthy in terms of pushing a product line. It's not possible to do it from scratch fast. Just not. Sarah met someone in her life called Richard. Richard had contacts. He was well versed in connectivity, in being in knowing the right people to contact or trusted sources to get for manufacturing options and quotes. Quotes, I'm not too sure what it implies in terms of product line, and it gave her the chance to like not need to do the extra research and meeting people and getting connections to help establish her business. So that's really important if you're starting out. You do want to like develop a sense of like you're gonna go into something and make money from it. Knowing that it was government funded, I don't know in lines of like getting the government to fund your projects. That sounds a bit out of line. Stretching the mark here. But there was already an established link and confidence implication with Richard being quite productive in what he does. So having an agenda, financial incentives, which led him to that direction. He says that it wasn't a shady person that he met on the conference. So like in a professional perspective, it seems like Richard was pretty well trusted in that sense. This comes in line as well of what we were talking about in lines of like companies who really care about the brand. They do want a good mentor. I see it in Dragon Dance when they link into asking different dragons to give them their business and what so. So yeah, I mean it makes sense, if you really have a huge attachment to the work you've done and want to see it succeed. And in lines of like products, you love seeing that customer response. I forget what it's called. Touch points was one way of wording it from one of the books I've read. Then you do really do make an appreciation that it's a thriving company. And look at now the big giants, from huge sports brands. We don't really do that much research on like the particular people working in it or like the leaders or what so, but like it's well touched. Since we're talking about starting a brand, not an existing brand, you really need a good public image for it to pick off at all. If you don't have a good public image, then people are not. You just did not develop a sense of trust. Was the majority of people, and that's the end of really. This chapter is pretty funny. It hits me good in the specific feelings in certain particular things, but it comes lines of like one of the business that Sara Davies went into, it was just like card envelopes, cards, giving heartfelt cards, and the cards themselves seem to have a dynamic effect on like a dynamic effect on people, but the envelopes seem to be an issue that was raised. So when they're delivering the card and what's so made of plastics or something like that or wood. So I take a stance like there seems to be a lot of issues with one of the working products that they were making, putting in effort into directions. Do you sell the envelope to go? Do you sell an envelope to go with that card? How is no one doing this? The cards were getting better and better, more ordinary, more popular, but it didn't seem that anyone had thought what goes around the cards is just as important as the card itself. Seems pretty clear to me that if I could provide a solution to that problem, I could have a product of my own to sell at the shows and perhaps even TV. One product was already out there. There was a market was folding pieces of board, wooden or plastic. Uh, yeah, no, that's stuff. I love fleshing out this information on the book as I come in lines of my product channel in terms of entertainment. But like it's like you never really invent an idea; you just conceptualize something, just making it so that you're kind of like ego checking yourself when you're trying to put something in lines in terms of a product line. But the concept of doing something always comes in times of like approaching a current problem that is popular in the mediatization. Having seen already a lot of popular Dragon Den investors coming on board making a products that even I resonated really well in enjoying it, and it's in a format that's really cute, like some of these things that were targeted that I saw. And one thing that comes in line is like the product implication of making something that comes in lines of like whatever the problem is, even looking for deals on a large scale to be able to make the purchase is a good direction for it. So coming in lines of like a sale being the pick of the day meant that the envelopers would be the main deal of the day, having tons of airtime and the best possible introduction in the market. I was so proud and excited. I literally left the office air punched till my arm ached. Nailed it! I've got my opening order, and what an opening order it is. 8,000 at 330. A lot of money after all. It's a lot of like you need the strategy. Whenever you approach these things and making your lines of like having a concept and like building it to be able to figure out how to put that into motion and the price associated. A good investor or a good point source of contact is definitely necessary if you want to minimize mistakes. So you do need someone senior to like give you some guidance, and then you need to have some implication of like testing how public opinion is going to take in correspondence to see if they like it or not. Because like the biggest thing is just like it's an element of risk. Will it make money? What have you got to prove that the public loves the idea of something that's conceptualized, and you need to like use that as an argument to say that this is gonna sell with people. Putting aside people who are obviously have large families and are wealthy, and obviously if they want to push out a product, they may easily be able to influence. So influencers as well, but I kind of like you may want to be a bit more selective of what kind of influencers you want to take in lines if you're starting a brand image to be able to like keep and preserve that kind of like confidence and trust inside that brand to externalize other components of it. So yeah, this is insane for this project, this investment that she's talking about. I'm just like reading it. She saw the like. Wait, let me get this. So like, the floor felt as if it was dropped from beneath. The difference between being an upsell or being the pick of the day is that instead of being the focus of the show, and instead of actually having an hour to demonstrate your product 8 times over the course of the day, you just have a few minutes to end the show. No, that's not what. I was definitely because it was a shake that Tony gave me. I was selling the envelopers to the ideal world for 330 per unit, making a pound profit for each one and paying Tony and his team 230 for each unit. This is what I wanted to emphasize. So I think the order cost was just like around 18.4k, and the only amount that this person she had at the time was he was only able to give 4.9550, which was a shortfall, and she felt absolutely and utterly sick to her stomach about the realization of the costs for expectation to be able to proceed for what was she was embarking for what I think were card selling business, card selling business, and I was too naive to that I needed to get an idea before I could start playing how big I am. And she did need to say that because of what this project involved, she needed to get her whole family involved into this, which likely was going to be some repercussion along the lines of doing that. So yeah, I mean, I personally would be a bit more. I would have done more research if a huge project in that line would require someone to would require cost that goes beyond my personal assets, and in lines of involving your family, well, you really can. You need to have started a foundation business from a smaller scale, and then you approach your family members about investment in lines of like, because like you're essentially approaching your family members as your family members in lines of what do you call it? Investing into you, in comparison to professional like people in the dragon nets that would have point source contacts to be able to give you all these things that you may require you in a scale of like money to involve your family. You can't just ask that huge amount to be able to make that amount. Like there needs to be some you need to have shown some confidence interval. So that is really hard to start a product from scratch. It was limited things. Or if I'm thinking about something that's a bit complicated, which was in lines of fabricating toys, which if I think about the different material, not just conceptualizing the idea, but like the products that you need, the good design, how to push it. It's a huge project, you know. Just to be able to establish some way of like being able to that this product can be have some success. So starting from a small scale to making product lines, and then be able to push this forward to like manufacturing costs, you know, and production. All that needs is trial and error. It's too hard to do in a very short period of time. You need to fucking you need you need to what you call what's the word I'm looking for. You need you need a what's the word I'm looking for? So I feel very distortion here because America kind of sold something on a basis of fraud, and it just puts America in a very bad picture in my mind because it just shows like they don't care as long as they make money and they get to fuck whatever repercussion it is to other people of whatever their social economic groups are. So like I don't really know because I don't see the other side, but like I hear that and like it doesn't good it doesn't make you feel the package is good at interpretations of certain things of what I think in terms of product lines. But I think that's maybe already done. Again, I didn't start a business on a shady perspective. This is the whole idea of like cryptocurrency. One coin, people got fucked around that, or cryptocurrencies where the market just got destroyed because of bad affiliation with branding on a larger scale. So same concept. Um, on a smaller basis, you could probably like swindle things if people don't make that realization. But on a larger scale, it has worse downfalls for certain things. That's how I understand it. Because I talk about like being able to like how can you show externalized success in terms of a product line, in terms of a well, what was the product line pushed into? Identity. Oh, okay. Well, yeah, no, that's definitely fucked up. Yeah, that's completely wrong. You completely and utterly destroyed your credibility for it to be a thriving brand. She's done some amazing things. I'm not joking here in terms of like finishing her degree. So in her business, she says that she what was it? Something that was impressing me. Putting aside the cost delegation, which is a big thing when you're managing a business, right? From advertisement to product placement, making orders, guaranteeing orders. There's a lot more detail to it when establishing a brand and a company and trying to find purchases and sales. And along with the aspects of like being innovative, of finding something new that will pick the interest towards your target audience and all that. I was reading something that impressed me in lines of like, well, putting aside some sales from the money making book that I thought already was interesting in terms of the timing your things when you have a product. But like, I think it was like she came out first in terms of highest. Yeah, she managed to graduate with a first class honors degree in the year as the highest achieving students in the whole of her management school. And that's pretty impressive. What people always ask, what's your biggest achievement? Well, still believing that to the fact that she's also on Dragon Den and she's a respected representative. So that's pretty cool in my opinion. That's really not easy to do. However, we can always feel a bit of like credibility issues when there's bad experience or bad publicity implication on certain things. But let's move on from that, right? It should be established that along her journey, she had an old classmate called Mira when she was going through her business, and she asked, "Do you need any help? I'm really worried about the case of my mother." Mira comes from a traditional Indian family, the Vigaravans, the kind of family where her dad was a doctor and her mom was always expecting her to stay home and look after the family. But Mira was around her age now, and she and her brother had gone, not just graduated, for left home. Amira knew how her mother was getting at home and not much to do, and she said, "Is there any chance you could come and help work for you?" I'm sorry. Sarah said, "I'm actually pretty good at. I feel pretty good at managing myself at getting things done, and you're in the massive amount of work coming in on lines of what she had to told." Mira was very insistent and said, "You don't have to pay. I just thought she could come and help you." So Mira sounds like a very kind and considerate woman. She feels like she feels concerned about the issues in lines of like how much of work is being externalized and pushed out in this direction. Sorry, was not being too comical. I agree with Mira's standpoint in saying, "Wow, there's a lot of ambitious things you're trying to large scales at this stage." It was kind of expressed to me in joke, but I see it in this book, and I like to contextualize it as well, because the joke was really good and I loved it. The whole impression of fake it till you make it, set up. It can only last for until a certain period of time before things become more difficult, and your character either becomes that you're able to persevere for it, or you just give up. And for a long running theme, this is like this wouldn't be too funny, but like it gives seniorship in terms of that statement, in terms of validation that from a joke to this upscale of its seriousness later on. Hiring process for eligibly getting people to come on board for production lines is also very, very interesting. I think a good portion of it is like, it looks like at this point it was talking in places of like how would you hire more staff in that relation, and I actually don't know. You have to plan their work hours. Like this is in line with starting a big company. This is not something you do overnight. No, this is something that requires a lot of methodical practice and planning to get a good recipe or formula. It seems like they were saying about setting two working 14 to 16 hours a day for best, which is very long, I think, right? 14 to 16 hours a day. And I think it came in lines because Kamala, was it? Kamala was taking the implication of like she didn't develop a good sense of trust with people handling her business, which she's taking care of so much at this stage. So it's like a good portion seems to be coming in lines of like hiring the right people to fit what you stand for. And this is where we're talking about brand making. What is it that you stand for? Why would people come in lines to put their effort and time and resources onto you, which is very interesting. This is still all these parts are in a drafting phase. In a more contextual, practical point, you can kind of tell, right, certain things about a person's characteristics, I guess. Now this comes in lines of like they're talking in production of the envelope part in particular, right? So this comes in lines of the manufacturing using MDFs, which is medium product design that doesn't have any natural defects, but like or in lines of plastic. And it seems consumer based with choosing their envelope and signs of like the business figurative speaking on a meme basis, from my perspective, for chapter 4 came in lines that it would cost less. So it came down to plastic being better. Actually, we're reducing costs more than lines of saying initial implication of bad product design made on external basis on a different direction. Well, that mistake's already done, but like again, I think it's not so relevant. It's not so relevant to the current context of what I'm kind of projecting in lines of like a reading. These people are real stars, and we talk about real stars are people who usually start selling their own product to their live audience. If they're ever like developing their own brand, they always do live performances. Something to really they put themselves out there to show them their authenticity, which also builds trust. These are touch points. That's what we were talking about. Lines again before in correspondence for people feeling attached to a product that they want to buy. I can think of a lot of good showmen when we talk about cards that do this in lines of when they sell their appeal, existing in every country. I will always inference from my biases of certain from my influences. The biggest implication is like time issues, and though I have a great interest in it, that cannot be in lines of like what's the word I'm looking for? It cannot be in lines of like unless I put some time allocated for something to actually make a product that feels entertaining and worthwhile. So it requires planning. Everything in a kind of like commercial aspect or in aspects where you're going to do branding, you're doing something to add to the image. You need to set time and money and be realistic when you're planning things to be practical. Does that make sense? In lines of making a branding for yourself that people will like and adore in a very serious aspects. Meaning, you need to give your working staff some credibility and time to like rest to be able to like do things in a practical aspect to reach efficiency for whatever you want to do in terms of entertainment. For me, it'll be always become line of entertainment in terms of productivity, in lines of what I'm trying to do and if I'm able to externalize something for actual success or not. Yeah. I mean, that's a good portion of it. So that's what I would like to say. Make related experience talking about chapters, right? So chapter 4 being the sprinkle of magic, and it does come in line of talking about the attraction of when people are viewing scenes on TVs, particularly a good portion of like it's like thumbnails in YouTube when you use an attractive presenter or you use something that appeals commercially to people in some way that catches their attention and fix them to like keep notice, and then later on the product comes in line, and in the practicality the product does come in terms of the long-term enjoyment and encouraging development and also what's the word? Gives people a good experience using their product. So the product in the long term, but the initial catch interest would come in lines of presenters catching their interest in a certain way of things that are meant to be commercialized or in whatever it may come in lines. But then again, if a target implication comes in line, are additions to screen for a part and not done in a stupid and idiotic manner. As I can clearly say, beauty in every different demography or epidemiology has their own bias for the audience. Since this was stupid, there was a lot of different problems and screening issues that would have come in lines of hiring the right people without, the right people or certain things. But we can't exclude the fact that the certain influences having already developed a good appeal to it would form in lines of where I think it comes in lines to my colors really showing. Okay, so in contextual, I thought the analogy of cards was really witty of this book author, of them to write about, because cards have different emotional turmoil for me. One being one aspect's a good portion of my attachments and success on my channel. The other aspect of like a plan messing up. So like, when I could read cards, they meant greetings, seasonal, birthday cards, or even Mother's Day's cards. Yeah, yeah. And the card package is without a matching envelope ruins the whole package of things. Personally, I always will enjoy playing cards and it's supposed to have sentimental attachments, but the commercialization of their expression of cards is funny, pretty witty in my in my opinion. When it comes times to like what people buy and commemorations to their existing relationship, to show them that they are cared for and they are well liked in some ways in certain matters. Inevitably, since the product they emphasize in the chapters are greeting cards or seasonal cards, and the package and the delivery has its effects on the person who's receiving them, which is a great analogy of like when you do a DIY craftsmanship, and you want to deliver it to make someone feel good about themselves, or something along those lines. The nature of like finding the right card and putting too much effort into a card without a matching size envelope, may come in more lines of certain bias or humors. So most people are taking the analogy as like a great, awesome card with the wrong size envelope. It's perspective in most aspects, but I can understand being distant for certain preference. Most of the time, the normality is people get a good card with a nice matching envelope, but it doesn't undermine that what I call branding, a emotional kind of like implication. If there was spectacular cards but the wrong size envelope, would come in lines of like in a sense of working on yourself and making your brand get recognized, and if it appeals to people or not, in lines of their understanding. For people to gravitate outside their norm, there needs to be the word I think it's line of coming. It's like they need to know who you are. Do this for your work. Do this for your whatever you enjoy, and people will catch on. This is the whole impression of developing in a market where things are where competition is fierce, where bias projections are made in cultural social norms and all that. That's the general idea. No, I think this is a great way of expressing it. Sorry. Something I thought was interesting, considering that this woman is very capable of like being good at processing information and presenting it in a package that makes educators feel quite good to be able to like say first class material. But like the standard of what I've understood is just like, even if you bombard yourself with information, the quantity is not as good as the quality. So like you just push info and more information to someone. Realistically, it says I don't know the exact figures for it, but I can believe that we only like use about 7% of what we communicate. The other we only use about 7% of what we communicate through words. Okay, sorry, this is a different intonation. Basically how we communicate information as we are learning. I kind of took this in a wrong perspective, but like 7% is communicated through words, 93% is communicated through body language to get that across. So I say that when you go into like real life meetings or business meetings and you have an intention, a lot of it, your own emotions will be communicated through everything that you do, not just through what you say. That kind of like that you have different emotional implication on things of intent, right? Like this is disparity of feelings, right? So like on one hand, you may like something, on another basis, you may not, right? And then you may battle this thought process, and a portion of you may like it, and a portion of you will always feel, let's say, have other preference. And like I guess what I would like to say is just like but like in all honesty, just like nothing is perfect, right? But like being able, I get the word is like being in control is a bigger way. So like I will actually agree with this. I'll say like you can't hide your feelings about your interactions and your intent when you're going into something, but you can definitely express them in a more controlled manner once you know your environment and are able to present yourself in a controlled manner from the expectation and comparison. Right? That's I guess that's the way I say it. But I guess this woman is trying to say is like people are tend to be very expressive in their intents and feelings about something. Uh, yeah, that's it. People are more expressive in intent as feelings when they don't need to overthink in terms of preparation and making an impression on people on those regards. This person also expressed a wanting to mix with people who also actively put in effort in their craftsmanship when making a quality presentation in lines of demonstration. And particular columns in lines of like working in TV was in the company that she's in, right? So she likes people who have some form of have some form of great back structure and integrity in their work. This is also distinguishing between passion and lines of like, are you passionate just for the paycheck or are you passionate just because you love the work? And the two can be easily distinguished between between this may feel sad for some people in certain regards, but that's the truth, right? Your feeling of emotion of like where you feel more passionate about the expression and how it is, it's gonna be different for everybody. But that's life as well for me. Distinguishing in lines of being a consumer or so okay, I like this quote in lines of like there'll be other companies that just follow the trends and they sell you things that aren't exactly evoke strong emotions is the best thing to say, but they are great quality. They may not be have any massive practical use in changing your life in ways, and the product may not be as fun. They may be okay for a few bits, and then you kind of move on. Uh, but they ride. Okay, this is kind of track today. They ride on a implication of a great storyteller behind a company, and for the company that business can perform really well on TV, they've got a great showman. They've got a great iconic figure that people keep loving to watch because they get to see the effect or the work or the passion they have in terms of making people feel something. I can name a lot of good spokesperson that I see is just like I love their work. I cannot believe how much they've done something like that, and it's easy for me to like what do you call like what they are sponsoring without putting much thought into the depth of it. That is one of the biggest impression that I can like express. And at the same time, someone that's really into the showmanship, who the biggest thing is, I feel in my personal basis, without they care about their fans. They care about the people who comes in lines of like engage into what they're trying to sell them. Does that make sense? Because like life is a business. This is as transparent as I want people to know. They don't want people to feel like they are just fodder like fodder like they want people to interact. Yeah, it may not be the best ideal product quality thing, but they don't want you to eat something and feel like it's shit. Right? They'll eat something and say it's okay. There's something better, but I enjoyed that still, and they'll move on. That's the impression of it. They don't want people to get. They don't want them. They don't want their viewers or their customers to feel like they're just money to them, right? And this can be very transparent in a lot of people's methodical approach, especially in the greater
quantity scale size of things. If you're managing too much stuff for you, then uh, the quality of experience is going to be deterred and fall down. It really depends how much you care in lines of having a passion for something, and how much you want to connect other people to feel the same way about a certain activity, or certain interaction in a certain community. One of the most transparent things you can ever do about interacting with a product, it's seeing the actual satisfaction people may have on interacting and doing things, and that generally comes from people not experiencing or not making the expectation of the experience, only to make that realization of something. A good portion of like people wanting to be drawn in is seeing that authenticity and then buying into that dream. Does that make sense? Buy into that thought process that they saw in terms of like people interacting with something, and I'm talking about lines of a product. So they talk about this beautiful card and then commercializing it, and then it getting read and having a great effect on families or whatever. Because there's nothing specific to talk about the cards, but like what are things that are innovative that make people feel good about card? A nice slogan, the timing, personalized image, which requires research on people. That is too hard to do on a large scale basis. So instead, the brand of a card teller needs to have some symbolism associated with the image that they pushed out to carry meaning that's well well globalized, distributed on a wide scale, right? I like to call flowers being one of them, or one of beautiful medium, or chess pieces in lines of communication, or even in lines of expressive art through dance movements or songs. I feel a brand associated with certain things, can push this across, and of the fans that it may or may not accumulate would gravitate into people buying into that dream because they make an appreciation. The best way I could say it is like the culture was in it, right? Before we talk about the large scale things to down to a more horizontal basis of something else. It's hard to say, but like you have to start in small steps for it to scale well for long term prospect. I feel that's the inevitable way, unless you've got someone that's fucking like constantly dishing out efforts in ways that you're not expecting in the context that he's in, and you still have a great attachment or effect onto what's been carried across. So I guess this is also why it makes me understand and relate to the feeling Sara Davies talking about on TV broadcasting, working with people who are craftsmen, who are also craftsmen, because maybe it's what's united them is a passion for showsmanship. So obviously, this woman's influences are going to be way much guided towards the entertainment industry in terms of TV. They're quoting people as much as famous as I would have also grown up watching, such as Simon Cowell, who was the intermediate for introducing her experience to what she wanted to do was like strictly club dancing, doing the cha 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 on TV. Oh, more material for me. I see. Nice. I Sorry, I said Simon, but in my head was Simon Cowell, but not necessarily that's the case. Just Simon from Petersborough. Yeah, sorry, actually. Yeah, this got me. Little Camilla was operating a 270-ton Baden-Fin machine, which are like twice the size of a table, the kind of thing that you'd see in geography videos at school for manufacturing plants. Surprisingly, even though they're dragon den investors, and obviously it should have expectation of a good credible experience behind the belt, right? If they have decided to industrialize them and commercialize them in a wide spectrum, but even they admit to not having experience in all the specific detail and every little details
of companies that they have invested of in the long term. Thinking stuff like what's it called? They don't necessarily visit all the manufacturing and designs of the company or the products. At some point, once they've got the gratification of like knowing how their involvement have led to the success of the companies pushing outwards because they are, I don't know what the word is. It's just like they're well connected and they know the right direction. So they like manage. They're like a good portion of like the investing themselves. You let them manage them. They like being that seniority and offer a sense of power in companies that they put their money in generally. So, but they won't know every single piece of detail. This is in lines of also the communication of figuring out, can I trust this person? Can I propagate and all that? And all these small things does improve as well their own judgment calls in lines of making decisions in the aspects of business, right? Sense. So I could take her stance of her enjoyment of the culture of like of business leading to travel to see something specifically is a bit romanticized in comparison to modern day consumption of things on productivity. As we say, a good portion of information is made available online. But the implication is something I also am deeply invested in, being able to uh, take in the experience from going out of your way to visit something and seeing the interaction live, giving the impression that this has a placid effect on you. We also I don't know if they talked about this before, but learning in different locations trigger different memory placement cells in terms of memories learning. So being a doer and going to see things for yourself and getting that experience is a good portion as well as how you can remember things better than memorization on a standard piece of paper, depending on your mood and your focus. However, I will admit that this is often hugely romanticized, not being necessarily the reality for getting productive results in a kind of like realistic standpoint of things. An implication of card making business established from Sara Davies' perspective in UK in comparison to USA, I would like to say that it's been demonstrated that people in a different country may react to a story feeling engaged into it, but over the time the reaction and the lines of priority will restructure towards local implication, right? So it's not to say that there's no empathy on some interpretation made in the direction of where this where this book is kind of like expressed in, but like it would have been where I kind of take a stance because uh given the amount of celebrity endorsement in a certain implication and direction for controversy and what's the effect now. The real thing is like in lines of the specificity things, it's like yeah, um it's a bag of mixed feelings here in a very gradual perspective here. Like um, I can't comment. I can't comment in a way that's I feel it's positive and constructive in comparison to the workload that I have to do. So like I have to finish my driving. I have to finish figuring out how to prepare for exams. I have to figure out solve projects. I have to look for my internship training, which are more priorities and focus and are much difficult in comparison to like priorities set up across in the different lines. But I can take a huge corresponding of not just the card making business, but the movie industry and in lines of other aspects of business, coming in lines of having a preference in outcomes on certain things with some reality. Like it's not that they don't have any attachment to it, but it's a mixed feeling of baggages. Everyone is their own person at the same time from interpretation. So I have a lot of gratitude of those things, knowing I'm also those. I you can put
satirical humor into your approach to actual practicality, knowing that it's kind of like ceased at a certain point. But like, it's kind of like, I don't know how to describe this without making some parties feel, oh, this is a burn on their side, which is gotta be inevitable. It's like, do I just throw away America? Well, the production line and execution of things, actually, there's a lot put in motions in lines of like Easter eggs from what started out in expression, but on a wider scale of things, really everyone just looks after themselves as they finalize to what I can interpret in lines of
Oh no.
commercialization in TV, because this is how this was done. Um, I can feel a huge implication of saying they didn't like the direction in the long term. What this has happened. Too late.
So this is the issue about envelope making from my perspective of understanding. The USA says that the envelope making should have the right fit of the appropriate cool card was the correct envelope. The main reason for this comes in lines of blackmailing when it comes down to generalization of fake romanticism attachment because of the implication that was placed out already. In most regards, I think most people may not mind having a heartfelt card in a different envelope as expected. The implication on a large scale basis is targeting in lines of blackmailing. Thank you very much. This comes in line of protecting intellectual properties, so IPs, and this is a big deal, especially in trademarking and businesses and affixing emotional attachments to a company wanting to proper their business, and it protects all their employees under them as well, right? Court orders estimate the fees, which were put at 150,000. They estimated Helix fees to be 100,000, and they calculated it to be the cost of the action taken, and then the person taking the action is liable to the cost if they lose a case. It can quickly is costing 10,000 per month in the lawyer's fees, and this was set to contribute in the courts. Helix countered on me either being too short of cash or too short of nerves to see this thing through, and tried to say to the courts that the case shouldn't even go ahead. So I guess there is an implication of like saying you need to collectively collect evidence or certain things to be able to build a case for a front, and it needs to be processed. But it depends on the scale of the issues, and this comes in lines of patents, right? So that's what I try to understand. So you either got a really good team or really well asphyxiated lawyers that's connected that wants to support your case in a large scale for doing a legal taking it across a legal action. They got their own community on things. They'll have to judge things on a contextual basis as well, whether they're going to proceed for a legal case or not, and how you approach this. You need a good lawyer. These kind of things are all word plays as well, in lines of like figuring out if you've got a case that can pull out money and extort something from giving someone a penalty for doing something that they shouldn't. And then again, you do come across of interpretation of like, who are you transgressing against? And it's sad to say that it's sad to say that people who are poor are always going to get the worst side of it. But like it does look like it's like that, even in a case where legal stances should be able to protect you. I guess it really depends on how much of a grand scale something is done in the lines of someone's success in terms of behavior, in terms of a legal stance. This kind of like abolishes the whole principle of law on a large scale of what's appropriate and what's not. The unfortunate part is, even in terms of like implication of law, it seems that even lawyers will sell you the service for a certain amount, and it really comes down to establishing knowing your worth. Yeah, knowing your worth when you're selling yourself. So knowing someone in law that is well connected and has a good brand and reputation, those are the high quality lawyers that you want to filter out from all the other legal experts in terms of like making
I don't know what this field is. This is completely different, right? It comes on lines of like making accusations and building your case to be able to win you in courts. My only reference of law are superficial and like watching a bit of Suits, in that regards. But like, that's it, really. Just like seeing people win courts. That's the professionals to do. So yeah, this is also in lines of where I take a stance of understanding, uh, coming in lines of feeling the rules because you played by the rules and you realize others very easily bend them for their own favors and their own selfish goals. When your progress may never have come in lines with your own professional standpoint on things. And like my comments is just like I hate that too. But like again, um, it's not a healthy culture. So if you expect that kind of culture in my career path, maybe you'd be happier. Why I think smiling healthily feels a healthier attachment with how I see the profession being led. This is very empathetic as well. I talked about this in lines of people who were invested in cryptocurrency, building their business around it, and cryptocurrency taking a huge bite because of volatility, the increased number of like scams, shams, and publicity that I was getting, and then only certain reputation of cryptocurrency getting a full backup and protection. Maybe we're also getting a point of understanding that the crypto was a spike to riches years back before it was before I took the comprehension of understanding it. Even the implication of like ETFs trying to offer the implication that this was a good way to have safe assets. Now I don't follow the financial market, especially not digital cryptocurrency, given my circumstances of my own bad clash of my own situation. But some people get really depressed when they put the whole investment into crypto, knowing the full damage of it, not knowing what they're doing, and like it's their game to play. You're not really connected. You do something like that, they can rip you apart because they don't have any respect for you in that regards, right? So like again, when you do something, a community will invest in you or not by looking at what you're doing and your brand associated with it. And if they don't like it or you don't support in lines of their community in that well, I feel like you're not gonna really take your side on certain things. So I talk about this because like people who put a lot of things in terms of identifying their product and all that puts their identity into their image, and seeing a backlash of them will make them hit on their egos and their self-esteem in that regards. But like you just didn't approach this the correct way, and that was the biggest problem. You did this incorrectly, and this is where you have to take a blow in your ego. Never comes across because in TV appearances it's never so obvious to me, but they take in lines of talking about a situation where legal implications are things that she actually come across a lot of issues in regards to this. This is never explored, and I could never get that from like watching her TV appearances and all that. But what was the reading? But I guess as things grow, as your business scales, there is a worry of implication where where legal actions need to be taken on certain things, just because I guess the word is everyone wants a slice of a pie if there is a peaking success of something or what so. Oh. There's not much detail. I am curious how much she goes, but it seems like behind her TV appearances, they do go for a lot of legal battles. So a framework business does need a good legal support to keep growing and building and protecting its brand. Chapter 7 kind of covers the impression of like the chapter calls change of attitude, and she goes in so much emphasis in lines of like
well, her health. She struggled with self-image issues, eating the right habit. She really put on the mindset of looking, fit, and I guess kind of getting that impression of like the expectation of the body, expectation to look. I shy away from saying not pretty, but like yeah, the impression is like she probably felt a bit self conscious about this. Also going through pregnancy and having her children in lines of development. She's written a whole chapter about it, an expression in lines of like getting making being able to integrate with friends who are having families, looking forward to certain expectations and what to do. It was very lively for her, in that sense. Um, I, I think this is the parts that I kind of highlighted the most is right now when I'm just kind of reading this and trying to grasp it. But I don't think I fully grasped it. In fact, since I'm at chapter 7, I kind of just been reading it, getting through it without tracking too much the progress of the information that would have been required to to imply about to apply in lines of like translating as much transparency in terms of information that I could from this. But yeah. She has her own shares and appreciation for healthcare and health problems that she also went through in life.
This woman also got a lot of awards. I've just been kind of like gradually reading, not too much implying getting trying to like relearn anything from this. But like aside from like approaching from like even at a stance of like after her pregnancy and like companies approaching her for like a related sponsorship from something that I had to look up at interest like, from QVC. QVC, I guess it's like a shopping company or something like that, which obviously is a big brand name, but it still has some celebrity endorsement, which is kind of decently impressive. But she herself, I was like, I got surprised she got a what do you call? What was the word I wanted to say? Endorsement from the Queen. Getting an award from the Queen has always been my career ambition, but it has been filed as a lifetime ambition. So I feel this woman has accomplished a lot, externally and very impressively for her, for the age group that she's in already, and practically she got it before the age of 50s, 60s, which I guess this is normally what I'm coming in lines. When I think about the Queens and you take awardships, I think about knighthood. Right, but so I don't know if that was the implication put down from this or not. But like she's also well affiliated with the royal family, so she's got like a lot of prestige and social backing towards her name and branding, right? So looking at the pictures inside the book and getting a good grasp of it from like the stuff that I thought was pretty cool. I love the startup of her envelope company, from like enveloping cards and related stuff to to seeing what is it the lines of Prince William giving a some form of award. I don't see what it is. An MBE. Now that is interesting. Whatever that is, MBE, and yeah, her introduction into the showbiz company, and Strictly Club, which is gonna be at the end. But I feel like Strictly Club has always had a great reputation. My mom tells me that at her workplace, they always talk very highly of Strictly Club dancing. I don't know, like this is like my experience just living in the UK and the show premises, and I watched it a few times. I was more into the X Factor, but like Strictly Club dancing obviously would have been something I would have taken a huge attachment if I wasn't so busy was like my own hobbies. So like the stage where I just consume a lot of television is not as much because I would do that more when I was younger in comparison. So yeah. So the next part I want to talk about is the implication of being a dragon. So in lines of like expectation from like I guess you could say in terms of acknowledgement of your social status, because like let's be honest, are certain things because it's kind of off in terms of like being considered worth their time. I guess is the bigger way of saying it. It's kind of like that in my hierarchies and in lines of like
professional expectation in my workplace that your time, the time of the higher up there, are usually reserved for themselves. Does that make sense? So like they to be see the best thing is just in consideration in the eyes of the least, are you worth their time to spend time with, because they already got a good portion of people that would be fully accomplished at their stage, given the context of an entertainment parody channel of entertainment in relation to something that was kind of like whoopsie daisy. And externalized in terms of like being endorsed or being incorporated in like large production television things. There are things that you can expect that needs to be kind of like achieved along the way. So your journey pathway. Again, my own stance of my creative channel comes in lines more as a meme making consideration, peeking on the internet, more than the journey pathways to actually putting myself out there into television for their traditional ways of like exposures and what so. But it's kind of like a healthy attachment, because in lines of my career development was always going to be medicine. I never really tried to shift away from that properly. Yeah, it's a bit off. So like I don't want to say anything really. It's just like I gotta kind of like go by a step by step basis. And like putting lines of priority, I feel also are healthier people in context. So it's just like, how do I say that? I'll probably judge you by what you do, but like on an external basis and like overall. But like I can't be 100% sure of certain things, right? Like I'm not in a position in my main career line where I have much for it says I just want to do a really good job, and then after that I plan to spend time with people I like and have fun with. Knowing that I've always been trying to improve myself and had things that I were trying to move away from. It's just a bit. It's always going to be this back and forth in a sense, right? If I have to externalize, where do I really see myself? Just someone trying to have fun and kind of resolving as well of a current situation, which is kind of weird, but not at the cost of where I should be in terms of like me still putting effort into it, and I don't think I would ever stop on a basis of like do nothing. I'd probably do something that's fun. So this comes lines of it's always curious seeing these entrepreneurs, investors coming lines of like where do they find themselves to become a significant guru in that industry to start investing in small businesses. And she does say that on her way to becoming a dragon, she had read a lot of relevant background histories in relation to the existing dragons who have started the show. So it's I come out obviously yeah, I mean like I the books offer you more details and specific on some things, and I've learned some stuff and I liked it. I'm not trying to be an entrepreneur because like I don't have the money, but like just taking an interest of hustling and like in the appeal of trying to make a brand and forming a company in a figurative stance, even conceptualizing an idea and making it in marketing was the painful reality of certain things on practicality and restriction. Why I'm going to post in lines, because like I like my idea, but it comes down to again like will it make money? Obviously, how do you test that, and what are the business obstacles that would come along the way that people who have already gone and been successful in business came across in lines of forming their independent business at the stage that they're in now, right? And like I just do not have the time because like it's just like it was interesting to explore this concept and idea of the practicality and forms of lines of an entertainment channel, but it really points out to just being able to provide content without the implication of like, oh, I wanted to make that idea having that kind of attachment to in a practical standpoint. But again, just I can't say it is very heavily linked to how the economy works and how business come across to same things. And it's just like
if the country is still in recession, I feel the implication of like people individually starting families or like trying to uh, where their spending habits are going to be wouldn't be in lines of like kind of like a leisure thing, right? It's going to target like my products are going to target working class to wealthier families, obviously, right? It's something in targets and lines of that from where I think affiliation from again a kind of meme gag to the point of like externalizing it. How do you transition this to success? Having said that, there's already been example of meme figures on the internet having made their own brand entertainment channel with some relative success or practicality on things or not. Was mine being a bit I have no idea what the fuck is going on the other side. And relevance is obviously because it comes in lines of medical things, overlapping things, and gestational diabetes is something that's big. It also is a big concern, a big implication. If I don't even know if I like bring in Irish influences, lines of like consultants that didn't work, in lines of doing a sugar tax to cut down on the rates of the obesity, because obesity is a rising epidemiology issue for the growing development country of Ireland, and it's also established that this comes in lines of gestational diabetes. Two aspects of where I recognize a figure that does research in those lines in terms of consultants having their lines come across this in overlapping their research in lines of like things. Sarah Davies also wants to make sure and highlight very evidently that she struggles a lot with public TV appearances, and she herself couldn't imagine to be in a position where she'd have to like put herself in front of a camera for different roles aside from how she normally is as a dragon. And I started to share that sentiment of the workload expected from having to put myself knowing that my life and line is written on the performance of on how I give a good show in front of the screen and what people think of me. So like how people would judge me and my skills for like future prospect was my career in the line of a future endorsement if I was put in that position. So it comes lines of like I would not call myself someone that is able to meet the expectation of a journey of some of the high standing prestige actors who have already made their names and gotten reputable with success in their industries. Blessing to anyone approaching and in the business direction in lines of what a dragon offers is leadership. You're investing into a leader that will guide and give a advice and footing that is going to bring you connection, good guidance, and basically if you do something, there's a good chance that you will see the result of it. Because I can tell you for a fact, someone that has put a lot of effort in things, if you're not well connected or don't have aligning success and they have a lot of money, they have a lot of influence, a lot of your works can feel empty. But it's why a lot of people will tell you it's just like chasing a passion has some correlation of enjoyment in your journey in your life. If you don't approach something that's already kind of like considered a stable career, I would like to consider, but then these days it's a bit off, like I don't want to say anything, just like, hey man, I'm on the worst end of the example of this right now, but yeah, so like what I want to say is just like shit, this is why I'm shit, this is why I'm yeah, I mean, like, unfortunately, I don't fit the exact perfect example of what most young people are probably looking up to when they pursue a career that has a lot of competition and a lot of barriers from like exams to costs and association for their success in life. I'm far off from being that example, unfortunately, because of ongoing awkwardness and circumstantial. But like in lines of, if you want fame and globalization, then you got to make the appreciation that you for you to pursue these things, you need to be seen as a role model in some way or in a manner. Or yeah, exactly. You need to be able to take on those qualities, even if you feel you don't want them on you. So this book also comes in lines of they sometimes like to recruit. What she came and find amazing was one time there was a person that approached the Dragon Den, and the name was Camise of Nyla Naturals. In her, he saw a fantastic storyteller, and again, that was something I knew from personal experience was a huge part of the package. She invented a program for afro hair. Her daughter had afro hair and aggressive eczema, so she didn't like putting on a ton of chemicals onto her scalp. So she began researching, and they saw potential in this person. Tried to make a product, right? And using natural ingredients. So they could see the ambition out of him. And so he had the problem was that this person was a bit of a sympathetic case. And he went on Dragon Den because he knew about the show, but he didn't have much experience or ability to figure out how to do things. And one of the things that they enjoyed doing was watching as they decided to kind of empathize on his circumstances and get exposed to a small niche of the market because of his own bias, watching him struggling to grow. But I'm used to being in a niche industry, craft, and I know a lot of people probably find what I do really dull. But then you had the opportunity to invest in my business when I was tiny. You'd be a multi-millionaire by now. Some people would have pushed away, but I think the implication was that what I was reading was the sheer enjoyment I get out of watching her personal journey and knowing that I played a role in helping her be even more successful that she might otherwise have been is incredible. And the branches will only spread from there because she in turn will inspire people in her community to try out these ideas and so on. So they really enjoyed taking on board even people who would otherwise they would have rejected quite quickly, taking empathy in the circumstances and seeing them become their own little flower, I guess you could say. 182 of, there be dragons and we can all make it. That's it. The experience of being a dragon from Sara Davies' standpoint is the following. It was a second generation. She says he didn't become a commercialized investor to be a magpie, only picking on things that were shiny and appealing to her. The problem is a lot of people who normally come to the business industry, to their headquarters, will all be very prideful and see their product as something that's, they feel is going to be pick them up and bring them riches. And you can tell the moment when they walk in, and that even if you say to them, sorry, but I don't believe that in my best guidance, they'll just say, they won't listen, and they will kind of move on. And they have a hard time accepting criticism, or the word is like, yeah, they'll have a hard time accepting criticism and it'll hurt them. Those are moments that a lot of dragons can see where it can be a bit hurtful, especially if you have a passion for business and seeing people grow in that kind of manner and way to your preference. So even a good product that you think have an idea, but you don't think you're the right person to partner with them, you still can't take it on because you're feeling too kind to say no to someone. And this is also a weakness in lines of being a good investor, especially if you don't have the assets. So you, in a sense, like wherever you want to be in terms of like your journey, being someone that can achieve results means that you have to be able to you do need to be able to say no to businesses for whatever it is, and then that kind of comes in lines of my understanding of some of it. So yeah, so like it's all interpretation, and someone can make a judge of their character for good reasons. And we all know that also there are some things that come in lines of enjoyment, which is fair. I'm not gonna say anything because like guys and girls are synced differently, but I do judge it in a contextual basis on their circumstances. So I would consider myself still young, I guess. No. So I do make an appreciation that she does come out lines nearing the end of talking about the aspects of like she's a very strong team player. Seeing the team spirit push me even harder to want to keep people in their jobs. When you're a small company with only a dozen staff, everyone has their own circumstances. But when you get 100 staff, it becomes harder to know everything, and it's harder to have an emotional connection with every one of your staff. So it's really like in lines of priority to certain things of what needs to be grabbed into your attention. It comes in lines of just like you need to show your worth. The implication if you show you care, you'll make them care by showing you are interacting with the staff in lines of your productivity. One would hope that would be the case. There might be some implication that this isn't always the best approach on things with direction on certain things, but the main impression is like getting people who organize things who are trying to get everyone productivity to care. The best way to do it is the same impression as before. I was reading from another marketing book, touch points, and that is interacting with content and relation. So when communication between one side and another, distance for reaching a goal of like high achievements, this causes distortions in lines of like goal orientations or in the direction of how something should be done to achieve success. Yes or no? Putting that across. Yeah. Incentives of like the card folding business in terms of envelopes in lines of her business. I kind of like this idea because like in a very what's the word, cutted sense. um she started trying to add other incentives and rewards with her little package of gifts, which everyone likes this sweet chocolates, but doesn't need to be chocolates. It could be also like, you know, what's likely to be popular in lines of certain things. Fruits being healthier in the maybe I want people want to be healthier in terms of their consumption of things, or some form of candies, or lollipops or whatever. Generally, chocolate is a chocolate was given with the sweet messages in consideration, and that added on to what is it called? It told staff that you kind of showed a care, that they were putting a lot of effort into something, and it meant a lot to them. So again, a good portion was that she was a good manager because she really went out to reach that emotional connection with the people who were on board with her tasks. So Sara Davies also says that exemplary when you fit in an environment for like a workplace, you have this kind of like armored coat that you put on yourself that kind of like meets to an expectation. And generally, if you are known to be quite good and well generated from the expectation of your work environment, uh, he would say that she would say that the in lines of putting up a front type business business person out there, and still know that projecting an image of a strong, powerful businesswoman, particularly if I'm not feeling it in the inside, is the way to do it. Given that I have 20 years of putting on that armor, I thought I was pretty goddamn good at it. So her professional image is clear from her personal life, generally. Good aspects of her thought process when she went to Strictly Club Dancing, taking in lines of role models, which comes in lines of Deborah as well, comes in the sense of what do you call, being feeling connectivity and being able to feel vulnerable from her expectation on her professional business, on the aspects of business, because business, when it involves money, means you do have to turn down people and say no to certain implications in lines that you don't think they will come on lines in the productivity of your company. And saying no to people can be hard. This is why they say you need to be a bit tough, maybe tough as nails. uh, and that can be a bit hard for certain people. So I guess the implication is just like when money is involved, it can be very easily to bring in. Uh, Money has influence. No matter who you are, money has a massive amount of influence in the direction that this is. So if you're the source and you're dispersing the funds, then generally you need to be a bit efficient at it. And we hope in lines ethical and ethical dilemmas. Good gravitation towards her enjoyment of being able to uh, achieve stuff through learning, or the incentive or the reward attached to it. So being able to, through practice and rehearsing the steps, she felt like she was able to. Uh, well, that's why she was given implication of like taking roles where there was more responsibility, and she enjoyed taking commands of roles in those lines. So because she learned how to do something really well in terms of the technique and technical aspects, and she would go out the way to take in courses and improve gaps in her knowledge, from business seminars to aspects of techniques. She later on took the understanding that she was given better responsibilities, right? So leadership, coaching from the approach, which is also in lines of psychology, because a person's mental states of their workers is a good portion towards implication of like productivity. It's really hard to ever do that in a very large scale, in all honesty, as we said before. It's easier to start on a smaller group and work on upwards. In lines that I can appreciate being also someone that thoroughly enjoys the activity of dancing. Um, a lot of it when you dance with a partner, not necessarily solo type of dancing. It's all about paying attention to body language. What kind of movement does your partner give? And it's a great way of feeling an implication, understanding people's emotions and feeling when you're trying to connect to them. It's how fluid you're able to move together, and not necessarily making more complex steps, and seeing the direction of where your other partner wants to be able to lead in terms of being able to, well, do great forms of dancing or not, if they're able to reach that kind of level or not, from where they were taking a stance of things, right? So, like I had different partners where they were just sticking on the first few steps, and other partners that wanted to try the more technical, complex stuff. It's kind of like finding the right dance partner for you. Does that make sense? Uh, so yeah, I mean, in a fair circumstances, in lessons, right? If you go as a partner together at a dance class, it's easier to feel that connectivity throughout the long process. But it's always more fun to do something with friends, basically. But you could also go there and make the activity, because like if you enjoy it, you'll just keep seeking places and opportunities to do more. So yeah, these sense of connectivity can be made again in competitions like strictly club dancing, just because it comes in lines of like, they assign you a particular partner and you go into a setting where you're competing. All the rest of the contenders are also beginners. You feel like you play at a level playing field, and you do feel like a good portion of your success of your appeal in the competition comes in lines of your own personal, either your work ethics or your talent inside the activity, and what is guided and what's no. And then you do appeal to a large public audience, which again comes in lines of being able to vote and things like that. So sometimes the judge only take a partial roles on when they have to eliminate someone. So the publics will always keep in their favorites through that kind of process in those kind of public competitions, which has its appeal and addiction, because it's again a large sense of like how these amateur competitions form its popularity on its connectivity. Even me and my classmates sometimes we talk about like the talent shows such as X Factor when I was in high school. That's relevant in my current circumstances where I follow it less often at this stage. But yeah, I make that now realization that why these talent shows hold some popularity. A lot of it is comes in lines of connectivity and you know, seeing people and getting attached to them for performing and trying to live their dream of being some form of show artist or what so was uh yeah, no, there's a lot of like people who are very grateful that the talent show competition is giving them, and their integrity is what leads them to the long-term success or not, even after the fame disappears, after a good portion of the peaks of the sales come in line, which makes it funny because a lot of I know I don't know if it's a big deal if I talk about it in lines of like if I think about X Factor, but like a good portions of their sales on singles comes in lines also during Christmas period time when you can expect shopping to be at its peak. If it fall in that kind of aspect, but there is showbiz dancing comes in lines of like proper attire and dresses and costumes in lines of the performance you give. Not just the dancing, there's a whole package involved from choosing the correct song and what you think in lines is going to appeal to the audience, which has a lot of elements of like implication of what do you think, how or do you think you're going to appeal in getting the crowd excited to watch you. And I think, well, you do have to impress the judges as well. I do think they are all hold a certain amount of respect in terms of veteran and um, being able to make accurate judgments in their technicality if they felt certain movements were better than others or they stood out in terms of one performance to another. And I guess this more comes in lines of people who really enjoy dancing more than anything. What the appeal of strictly club dancing may also come in lines is like the fact that you can be bad at something. So like those who've developed a very, because celebrities that go and dance, most of them are going to be famous and have expected to portray themselves in a very like strong composite manner, right? This activity is kind of like a great way of them not looking, so uh, not holding such a strong positive image, and that gives them opportunities to make mistakes, but still be without it affecting, in a sense, their public image and in a manner that's like destructive for the expectation of roles such as leadership. So I think it's just said the word was lines of saying, uh, the only worse than ending up looking a fool would be to look like someone trying to avoid looking like a fool. But like this is in lines of like the process of the competition, because they know a lot of people who go there probably never even tried to dance before, but they very very accomplished, and going there is kind of like setting the pace and the mood for celebrities to get to go into to go into the arts without thinking that they're gonna be without thinking that this is gonna affect other parts of their life in terms of leadership roles or not. I'm gonna obviously state the their impression, but the expectation is when you go inside circuit club dancing, your expectation is her expectation and viewpoint is you're expected to show off. Yeah, that is a competition. Show off your moves and incredible ability to excite the crowd from not having much experience to that result. So you are going to be like on a stance of having a professional dancer being your partner in that lines.
Hey everyone, thank you for putting the effort to watch the effort I placed on making something of an entertaining video. I hope you enjoyed it. As I said before, it's not forced, but like I really would appreciate any contribution and support you give to this channel, as it gives me more motivation and more incentive to enjoy more video creating and content creation. If you find that the content's drifts away at any point, you can always unsubscribe. It's no big deal. Again, it doesn't mean much. It doesn't take much from you, but it means a whole bunch of me, and it would feel great if you would just reward my efforts of trying to be positive and contributionary. Thank you so much. Bye.